Welcome, everybody, to the Depths of Motherhood podcast. This is a special season dedicated to the tribe of the mother. But also, I know any mothers listening will find this extremely valuable. I've created each episode to offer simple, digestible, and supportive information, which I hope will educate and inspire anyone who listens. So this is by popular demand. Please help us to educate and support the tribe holding the mother. Look forward to passionate and highly knowledgeable guests dedicated to reclaiming the essence of birth and embracing conscious parenting. Throughout our time together, our guests will serve as the guiding voices, illuminating the path towards a deeper understanding of preconception, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. This is with the mother and the baby being the center of the exploration. In the show notes, you'll discover the link to Nourished Mother package, which will offer many different resources to complement each episode. This is free for all members in the Women's Circle, or £33 for everybody who just wants to purchase the package. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible guests and immense gratitude to my partner for supporting me on this creation. And finally, last but not least, special thank you to Araya, my daughter, for being an endless well of inspiration. Welcome back, everybody. Today we are joined by the wonderful Olivia Hinge, a mother, a midwife, a lactation consultant, and the author of A Judgment-Free Guide to Feeding Your Baby, Boob, Bottle, and All. This was released last year in August. Congratulations, Olivia, for bringing this into the world. We have a previous conversation together, which is episode 40. You can find this in the show notes, where we explore topics like mastitis, aversion to breastfeeding, and inverted nipples. Today, we are bringing forth some of the questions that have come from our community. So thank you so much for contributing, and I'm really excited to share Olivia's insights on these questions. So Olivia, having struggled with establishing feeding for her first child, was really inspired to qualify as a lactation consultant, and she went on to really make this her mission to share evidence-based knowledge and judgment-free guidance to families. As we go through this conversation, she's bringing in the physiology and the evidence-based practice to the questions that you asked. So these questions are from the baby's positioning to the latch to, does my child need to be winded after every feed? And we also look at tools that we can purchase to support us and things that are pretty unnecessary. Also exploring the topic of low milk supply and how we can support our body, specifically our nipples, if there is any wounding or trauma during the breastfeeding experience. And we're doing a big shout out to all of the support team for the mothers, calling in the cheerleaders to support this safe and supported space for the mother to really drop into this experience and to be nourished. So thank you so much for being here, whether you are pregnant, new to parenting, or someone who's supporting a mother in your life. I hope that you enjoy this conversation to receive Olivia's wisdom and inspiration. And as part of this podcast, I have just released January's Mother Circle, which is a recording. And in there, you can find a breathwork practice, a meditation, and also journal prompts to support you in arriving in this new year. Happy 2025. Okay, so let's get ready for this conversation. Come and find yourself resting in your body. Notice your breath. And with each inhale, let us draw our energy back, our awareness back into our body. And that just means to become present and aware of your physical body. You can start to feel the back of your body, the front, the sides, maybe bring in some gentle movement. It might be that your anchor is on your breath. Does anything as you feel your awareness coming back to yourself, and just take a moment to celebrate you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for showing up. Sending you and your family so much love. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. Thank you for being here again. It's been a year since we last met. In this conversation, we're really getting into the basics and we're focusing towards the friends, the family, and the partners supporting mothers. So thank you for being here, for creating this with me.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for patience for children in the background. Builders, children, adults.
It's as it when you work from home, you get all these joys, right?
Yes. I like your positive spin on it. Hopefully the people listening and interested in this will be used to the patter of children.
Like everyone knows Araya. She always comes in for some booby. She's still going. Since last time we spoke, she's still breastfeeding. So your conversation really stuck with her because I think you mentioned there's no end limit. So she was like, I'm just going to breastfeed for the rest of my life.
How old is she now?
She's 3 in March.
Oh, yeah, my eldest was 3 when she started. I led the weaning, but she was 3 when I said, "Okay, I'm done."
I can feel though she's almost there now. She's having her pancakes in the morning and a cup of tea and she's almost done. She's just like the night times of the moments when she wants to cozy up and have some booba as she calls it. So
Bless her. Night times are when we all feel our most vulnerable, I think. The fears creep in at night, and I think that's that being the last little bit to sort of drop away is normal and natural, and it's lovely to offer that comfort.
it's super cozy. And it's been such a gift with us traveling around. And
Yeah,
it is actually the biggest gift.
yeah.
So I have a bunch of questions for you that have come from our listeners and our members from Instagram. My mind's somewhere else today. I'm flowing with
Right?
jet. So whatever
The Instagram, yeah.
one of the questions, the first question that came through was, is there anything that we need to buy to prepare for breastfeeding?
No. Full stop. Um, no, well, that's not strictly true, is it? So there's lots of gadgets out there. And I think what we need to keep in mind is that these gadgets are being created to make a profit. And of course, everyone needs to make a profit. I get it. There's markets opening, and we increasingly feel like if we don't have these gadgets, we're not going to be successful. The things that I would recommend, I'll start with the things I recommend that you perhaps do look into having if you want them, if they feel right for you, and the things that I would say don't get, save your money. So to start with, maybe a nursing bra. Give the girls a spa day. You know, a nursing bra can feel really nice and supportive, particularly in those early days when your breast can feel quite heavy and full. It is quite nice to sort of sweep them up and secure them, nothing too tight. It doesn't have to be expensively fitted either. It can just be like a sort of crop top, a stretchy, a sports bra that's not for high impact, that sort of thing. As long as you can pull it down to get your breast out, that can work for you. Some people hate wearing bras and they just wear vests, but it's got to be one with lycra in it. So it sort of can go up against your boobs, because what the other thing that you may want is a breast pad. So I'm going to talk as if people are sort of completely new to breastfeeding, if that's okay. So a breast pad is basically when your baby suckles on one breast, you get a letdown because the nipple is stimulated, causes oxytocin. And when the letdown, so that's the milk releasing from the breast, happens in one boob, you get a little side salad on the other boob. So a little bit of milk normally comes out as well from the other breast in those early days. A breast pad is absorbent. It can be a disposable one. It can be a reusable one. It can be very simple. It can literally just be a bit of like fabric folded up and shoved there, because otherwise you do end up getting really quite wet. And in my experience, maybe it's not for everyone, I end up smelling, for me, for comfort, I like wearing a bra or a vest top that's supported. You can buy a nursing one, which you can flip open. And really, it's about it. The things that people really think they need is like a nursing pillow. So that usually is like a sort of C-shaped pillow that wraps around your abdomen. So you put the baby on there, that takes the weight, and then you put the baby on the breast. But if you think about it, my nipple to hip height is going to be very different to somebody else's, but we're all going to use the same depth of a pillow. And that just doesn't make anatomical common sense when we really think of it like that. Because what that's potentially going to do is bring a baby too high or too low for one of us. And when we're talking about getting a deep, comfortable latch, it is literally fractions of a millimeter of difference that can take us from a very painful, shallow latch to a beautiful, deep, comfortable latch. So my advice is you can get the nursing pillow. Lots of people very generously hand me downs. You can have one, but put the baby on the breast first, get them a deep latch comfortable, and then insert I like a bed pillow personally, just folded up and wedged underneath them. But if you want to use a nursing pillow, then shove it underneath then. They can be really helpful for twins or multiples. Because if you don't have this, using both of your arms constantly can be absolutely exhausting feeding if you're tandem feeding, or if you've got an older nursling and a younger nursling. So absolutely do use one then, but just be conscious of perhaps you might need to push it down further, raise it higher, maybe put another pillow underneath it, for example. So don't just take it as gospel that your nursing pillow will get you at good nipple height, if that makes sense. And pumps, of course, everybody now, it very much feels that people think, well, if I'm going to breastfeed, I have to pump. The two come together. And of course they don't if you don't want them to. Obviously, if people are returning to work, then you probably will need early-ish, like within the first 10 months, you may well need a pump. Okay, so it's predominantly the UK has quite a long time for maternity leave on crap pay, but we're very lucky we get up to 12 months. So lots of UK people buy a pump with the thoughts of just like a wearable pump, maybe for here and there bottles. But actually, when their baby is born, they may suddenly go, actually, I've got a supply problem here. We've got some issues. And then they've already bought an expensive wearable pump. And now they've got to buy a very expensive, sort of double, super strong, or even rent a hospital grade one. So my advice would be, if you do need a pump, why don't you buy it once you know what it's for? Once your baby's arrived, we've got next day delivery, even with rented ones in the UK, certainly you can just go to lots of chemists and just pick one up. They rent them from chemists and stuff. So saving that, what can be quite a big expense of money until you really know what it's for. Yeah, hold off on a pump until we know what it's for is my other piece of advice. But I can't think of anything else. Is there anything else you think people make the assumption they need for breastfeeding?
That's such a great tip, actually, when you're saying about the pumps, because I did the same. I was like, I need a pump because I'm breastfeeding. And then actually, I did pump, but not for a reason that made any sense. I was doing it
Mm.
so that my partner could support me with feeding Araya, but actually, I just found I was pumping all of my free time when
Yeah.
was rested when she was breastfeeding. It was my mindset was very conditioned to what it meant to pump. The one thing I did use is a Hakka. Have you seen them?
Mm.
I
I
attach a
found
hook around.
I'm not the best person. So I see all the problems that hackers can cause. So a hacker is like a suction. They're called like suction pumps or bulb pumps. It's like a silicone. It's got like a bulb at the bottom and then a big sort of open, like a flower open flange at the top. The flange sits on the breast. There's an assumption that a hacker or a suction pump is going to just catch your letdown on the other side, when actually it's not. It's attached to the breast with suction. So it's going to draw out more milk than is just dripping. People tend to use them. They think it's very benign and there's nothing much to this. There's no technology, so it's fine. But what you're going to end up doing, if people use that for every feed, you're going to produce huge amounts of milk. So you've got enough milk to feed the baby, and you've got this hacker filled with every feed. You're filling your freezer. And the problems with an oversupply, if anybody has had one, is it's as when you produce too much milk, it's really miserable for you and your baby. So I think if you're going to use a hacker, it's a low cost option to collect milk, which is great. Great to have these options. You can, of course, use your hand. Hand expressing is free and wonderful. And the great thing about hand expressing is it gets loads of fatty milk, whereas a hacker is just drip milk. So, for example, it can't be donated to a milk bank because it doesn't have the full spectrum of milk. It is just that drip milk at the beginning. So it's low fat. It can disrupt some babies' tummies because it's very lactose rich, which is the sugar in breast milk, which if they consume loads of lactose, their body doesn't have enough of the enzyme to break it down. They get very windy, very farty, lots of like green poos and just seem unhappy. So it- absolutely a hacker can be great, but I would never say use one all the time. And it's not the best option if your baby's not gaining weight well to give as top up milk, because of course it's not the full spectrum of milk. You can use one and then hand express sort of afterwards into the bulb as well. And that will give you a better range of milk.
Do you ever get them moments when you learn something and you almost want to cry? Just when I'm getting goosebumps and it's like I want to cry, but also because I'm so happy to receive information that I don't know, and it blows my mind.
I could talk about them just for hours, to be honest, because if you think you've got a baby that goes on the first breast and it's lovely, it's a full breast, so the milk comes out quite quickly and easily, they bosh into their rhythm, dum, dum, dum. And because they're sucking on that lovely milk that's flowed easily, they're happier to stay and go with the slower flowing milk towards the end of a feed as if the breast is draining. It's fattier milk. You can squeeze your boob as well at compression. And then you're like, well, you're not gaining weight well. So I keep being told, put you on the second breast, but the hacker's been on there. And the hacker's taken away that beautiful free flowing milk that will tempt them into that second breast. So you put them onto the second breast and they're like, well, where's the milk, buddy? I'm not, you've got to start them off. You can't just go, here's the much harder to feed from milk. Yeah, it's fattier, it's, bloody blah. But they're like, nah, sorry, I'm half comatose with milk. I'm not vigorous enough and hungry enough to really go for it on that second boob. Whereas if they go to a full boob that hasn't been touched, then they're going to go with that free flowing milk and they'll keep the rhythm to then hopefully drain that second breast as well.
Mother Nature knows, doesn't she?
That's what I'm saying. Mother Nature knows. Save your money. I mean, a suction pump isn't much money, but all these little itty bitty things that we buy, if we look at that total, what could we be saving and putting towards paying for skilled help? And whilst we shouldn't have to rely on paying for private skilled help, sadly, certainly in the UK, and I know places like Australia and America, if you don't have insurance or it's not covered by your insurance, you have got to spend out of your own pocket. And it can be pricey. Whereas, 100 quid or so could buy you an hour, 2 hours of lactation consultant who could just transform your feeding.
Wow. And I feel whenever I have any anxiety or stress coming up, I want to buy things because I feel like it's going to support me.
Add to cart, add to cart. All that makes me feel wonderful. It's so bad for my wallet, the environment, everything, but add to cart is a beautiful thing for me too.
Yeah, comfort thing. And things sell really easily. Like advertisements are really good and convincing. So this is gold. Thank you. So, other end of the spectrum, another question that came through was what's the likelihood of having no milk supply or experiencing low milk supply, and what can be done if this happens?
The likelihood of not making any milk is really, really unlikely unless you have had, for example, a double mastectomy and removed both of your breasts. So what we've got is glandular tissue in the breast, and this develops with every cycle of your period and puberty. You develop more and more of this breast tissue, and we never go backwards; we always go forwards. So your body from about 16 weeks of pregnancy is actually producing colostrum, that very first milk. I think of it as like a cordial concentrate. And then when your milk comes in about 3 to 4 days after the birth, that's when you add in the copious amounts of water and you get much bigger volumes. There are lots of things. We have this beautiful equation that we sort of need to make an ample full milk supply. Lots of people in the lactation world feel that something called insufficient glandular tissue is actually more common than some of the stats say. So the stats say something like, there's no decent research on this really, but they say like 95% of the female population who want to breastfeed should be able to with a full supply. I think in our modern day society, I think there's more things that we could run into, to be quite honest. So what we need is sufficient glandular tissue. There's no way of knowing this until we try breastfeeding, really. There are some classic the appearance of breast that may be an indicator, perhaps, that we don't have as much glandular tissue, and that's the milk making tissue. So things like very widely spaced breasts, tubular breasts, and breasts that feel very quite empty or without that firm, dense sort of feeling to them, particularly in pregnancy. They used to say that, you have to go up 1 or 2 breast cup sizes, and that's a good sign. Whereas some researchers actually said that's not that indicative, actually. We also need the right hormones. So hormones that in modern society, I feel we could be more iffy on is like our thyroid function. So our thyroid function, which, what's interesting is that you can find that some private IVF clinic test thyroid function and their category for normal is different to the NHS category. So actually, they treat this person with thyroid medication and the person falls pregnant naturally themselves. Whereas then we forget about that when we're making milk. Our thyroid function is key to us making milk. Also, our insulin production. So we've got more and more cases of like type 2 diabetes, for example, gestational diabetes, we're screening much more for. If we don't have well working insulin, we're also not going to make enough milk. So many things, and infertility, unexplained infertility. If we don't know why we can't fall pregnant, what's going on hormonally, So a lot of people with chronic diseases, they've had amazing medications to make their life healthy and wonderful, or they've had operations and stuff. But, whether what our body was naturally going to be doing in terms of falling pregnant, no one's supporting us. They support us to fall pregnant, but they're not supporting us then in our desire to breastfeed. And it can feel really just this deep core. It's not a want to breastfeed, it's a need to breastfeed. And a lot of the time, people aren't saying, your body's working hard because it's compensating for XYZ. This may compromise your milk making ability. We can't expect our body to be limitless in its energy and its, everything like that. We have to be kind to our body. And that's when people you're told, oh, fed is best. Fed is best. And you're just like, but that's totally disregarding my deep desire to feed my baby from my breast. And then we've got optimal nutrition, things like calcium and protein are really important to our ability to breastfeed our children. And of course, a baby who goes to the breast effectively latches and sucks well. They're the other things that we need. So it seems like a very complicated recipe, but it's actually not if we have good support, good advice from the very start, or even from pregnancy. So let's learn our hand expressing before we have our baby. So we've got that skill under our belt. We come into having a baby with a sense of autonomy. And actually, I have a skill that I can use to empower me in my journey to breastfeed. So, yeah, for me, it's decent support and advice from the very, very beginning. The frequency of feeding with a good latch is usually the most important thing.
Yes, and that's exactly why I wanted to create this season for friends and families and partners to understand the journey from preconception onwards so that the support can be there. Because I feel it can be quite intimidating with all the information that's out there and all the things that are advertised, but actually to get down to this innate desire, this innate wisdom to understand that
Yeah.
and realizing how simple it actually is. But in
And,
this,
and
like you say, it seems complicated because there's
yeah,
distractions.
I think also when we're talking about get away from the complicated stuff and down to the basics, this is just my personal experience. When you're talking about friends, family, partners, the most influential thing for me was cheerleaders.
Mm.
With my first child, I had so many challenges, and I was a midwife and I was like a breastfeeding specialist midwife, and still I struggled so much. And had it not been for my mum, my dad, and my husband every single day saying to me, I see you, I see what you're doing. Thank you so much. I know it's hard. Giving me perspective as well to say, but hang on, we've had XYZ good thing today that we didn't have yesterday. And then I'm like, yeah, but it's all rubbish because of it. And they'd be like, oh, trying to keep it a positive frame. I mean, my mum was old school, but my mum was like, well, my nipples bled for 2 weeks and I just got on with it. And, then I said, you and your brother for how many years? And I was like, you know, I actually was that. It didn't offer me solutions, but it made me go, do you know what? People have done this. I can do this. I just needed cheerleaders to say, thank you. Well done. You're doing great. And I'm not that sort of person. I'm not a needy sort of person. I'm a very composed, self-assured, confident person in other situations. But when you've just had a baby, you're so vulnerable and side of yourself that you've never seen or experienced before. And that in itself throws you off, let alone trying to keep a little one alive and all the rest of it.
I remember when my first week, and it was such a struggle for me because it was so painful. And I
Okay.
felt like I was doing something wrong. And my mum didn't breastfeed with me, but actually she was still helping me do the research. And she was like, we'll find some things that will help your nipples. And this is also why I found you and other people that advocated for breastfeeding. I didn't feel alone anymore. I realized that there
Mm.
are some struggles sometimes, but with that support and knowing that other people are doing it all around the world, and sometimes these challenges and this pain can come within the body, it made me feel, okay, I can do this. I can get through this part. I can get through this moment, and then it's going to get easier. And it did.
It did, exactly. Sometimes you lose yourself. You can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
And you need somebody to say to you, come on, here's the path. We're going to do this together.
Yeah.
Your partner or your mum or whoever your close family friend says, hang on, we made that breastfeeding plan before the baby was born. Let's revisit, let's look at it now. So let's look, where did we say we could find support? your friend down the road so that they like this lactation consultant, or we've got that cafe, that charity drop in, the Lecturing League or something like that, just down the road. We can reach out to them. We've got these accounts, we've got these websites. Let's sit and look together. Or I've looked, like say I'm the partner, I've looked and these are the things I've read.
Well, of
So,
course.
yeah. So if someone said to me, look, you need to do this, I'd be like, do you know what? You need to do that. Stop telling me what I need to do. Whereas to say, the person that you're providing the support to. And sometimes you've just got to take it on the chin and be like, okay, don't snap back. But ultimately, the advice probably will be really helpful. And hopefully the birthing person sort of goes, I'm sorry I was grumpy. I am like this when I'm tired or something like that.
This is all this beautiful conscious communication. And I remember I just needed like my head touched and massaged or something for me to come back and relax into my body when things were getting painful or I was tired and exhausted. I just wanted to be touched and stroked. And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I don't want to be touched and stroked. But just asking, like, how can I serve you? How can I best support you?
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the most beautiful gift. Is so welcomed. And I'm curious because I think one of my issues was the latch in the beginning. So do you have any top tips on even knowing that there is an issue with the latch or supporting a how would you say it, a healthy latch?
But yeah, I mean, getting a deep, like, I think as with all the technology, like we meddle a lot and we have over engineered perhaps putting our baby to the breast. Whereas the laid back nursing or biological nursing, same sort of word, same thing, just different description. It's sort of that, so many people sort of say, oh, that first breastfeed amazing. When the baby was born, I was like absolutely exhausted. I slumped back and my baby just was on me. It was just an amazing feed. The baby fed really, really well. It was just great. And then the feeds afterwards, the way you're sat upright, your parent leading the baby to the breast, it gets challenging. Well, why is that? Because with laid back nursing, where the mum's at like 45-degree angle, slumped back, baby's basically tummy down on you, this triggers their feeding reflexes. This is the way that sort of Mother Nature made babies to feed. So that can be a really good thing to revisit. Nancy Moore Baker, an American IBCLC, has amazing videos on YouTube showing how to do it. You may want to watch a couple of those before you have your baby, if you're having struggles with a latch. With parent-led positioning, the way that you hold your baby, do you know one of the key things that I see be the problem is babies aren't smushed in enough. So you need there's no gaps between you and your baby. Your baby is absolutely into your body and supported and held you out the feed, totally like a second skin to you. That makes a massive difference with their head tilted back as well at the breast. And you just think there's a sticky outy nipple and there's an open hole their mouth, just slot them together like a jigsaw piece. Whereas actually, because we're sort of over engineering it, we've got them upright in this position perhaps that they wouldn't have naturally done. Actually, what we've got to be is totally off center. And you want your nipple sort of as if you're trying to shoot milk up their nose. So their head is back and their chin hits the breast first. And then their top lip just goes over the nipple. So it looks like an asymmetric gait. But there's lots of images online actually that you can look at.
So I'm curious as well to sometimes there is this pain on the nipples after in the first week or the first 2 weeks. Do you have any tips for that to soothe this painful nipples?
What I always think with this, so often I see people say, if breastfeeding hurts, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh, piss off. We're all learning. Like, why come at me with the negative? And
Yeah.
then you knock someone, you go, I've got sore nipples. I'm not doing this right. And again, you're confident. Confidence is knocked. You've got this new baby. You don't have a clue what you're doing with. You feel totally overwhelmed. Like, let's just stay positive here, guys. So I actually don't agree with that because I think the majority of us, this is the first time something has sucked ferociously on our nipples 12, 14 times a day. Your nipple is not just going in their mouth and being sucked, it's doubling, tripling in length. That's a very new sensation. It can feel intense to say the least. What we're also doing is the nipple is traveling across the bony palate of their mouth to this beautiful sweet spot at the back of like it's right near their gag reflex, right at the back. So when they get to that sweet spot, which maybe takes 30 seconds, it goes from being toe curlingly, whoa, cheesy, crazy, it's that feeling again, to, oh, that feels fine. That just feels intense in suction. So actually, it's totally normal to get a toe curling 30, 40 seconds to start with. But to know that we're doing well, we then want to, it's not, oh, the pain has got a little bit better. It should be the pain has gone. There's no pinching. It just feels intense suction. And that in itself can be a sensation to learn and to come to accept isn't a bad thing because it felt very intense to me. I don't know about you. So for this initial discomfort, if it's just that, you don't really need anything. Nothing is going to help you with that. It's just your nipples getting used to being elastic and stretching for that first time. Whereas if you've got trauma on your nipples, again, don't panic, don't beat yourself up. Loads of us, including myself, have had trauma on our nipples. It, as you and your baby are learning this dance together, and it can be, it's a new tango with every baby. So don't think I fed two babies before, my third baby, and I've got trauma. I'm hopeless. You're not. You and your baby are learning. If you do have trauma, of course, the first thing I'm going to say is get skilled help. Work out why. Is it just positioning and attachment and you're learning how to do this together? And there's probably a few little millimeter tweaks that we can make. Or if the positioning and attachment actually looks really good, and you hear this often, people are told, my positioning attachment is great. They say the latch looks great, but you've still got trauma on your nipples. Well, then we need to start by exploring what's going on in their mouth. What can't we see? What's their oral function like? What's the muscle tone like? What's the tongue movement like? Could there be a bit of oral tissue holding, like underneath the tongue, holding the tongue maybe down or it can't go left or right? These sorts of things. I think it's important we remember tongue tie cannot be assessed visually. In the UK, midwives not routinely trained, health visitors not routinely trained, doctors not routinely trained to assess for them. It is IBCLCs or tongue tie practitioners who can take a measure of tongue function. It should involve a finger in the baby's mouth. But whilst you're getting this support and, maybe waiting for appointments to help your nipples heal, it would be moist wound healing. So moist wound healing is what has been happening on every other body part for loads of years. It's where we keep the wound moist as it heals and covered, and it can speed it up healing by about 50%. So you can get, because also to consider a cracked nipple, it's not like you can just sit and rest it and chill out. It's got to be used. So you really want to keep this wound as supple and as moist as possible. Because if you think of a dry, scabby wound, which is then sucked, that lovely healing that's gone on is going to come off again. And it's dry, so it's going to crack and it's going to be more painful. If you keep it moist, it's got more movement to it and it's more supple. So ideally, you'll find a sort of like a nipple balm that I'd always say doesn't have lanolin in it. Lanolin is a product of sheep, something. So what you can, it's like a sheep wool. So if you look for a vegetarian nipple balm, that's the easiest way to find a lanolin-free one. Lanolin, weirdly, people have allergic reactions to. Much more common than I ever thought. And so their nipples don't get better. And it turns out, actually, they've cracked their positioning attachment. It's the ongoing use of lanolin that's the problem. It's also so slippy that a baby might get a lovely deep latch, but because the lanolin's so slippy, they just slip off to a shallow latch. Yeah. And of course, the most popular in the UK, certainly the most popular nipple balm brand, the Purple Tube, contains loads of lanolin. So using a lanolin-free balm and then getting like a hydrogel pad. So you can get a hydrogel dressing. You can get nipple-specific ones for breasts. You can, off the dreaded Amazon, or you might be able to find them more independently and using those. Or you can use something like Gelinet, which is a burn healing dressing, and you can just get those from your local pharmacy. You just put your balm on, cover it with your hydrogel dressing or your Gelinet, and then your breast pad, bra. And then before a feed, just take it all off, wipe off any excess cream, and just feed.
Wow. Could you
And then
use
keep it
like
moist.
coconut oil or something like that? Could you use coconut oil?
Yeah, you could use coconut oil. Some people, again, have actually allergic reactions to coconut. That can be an allergen. But yeah, coconut oil is absolutely fine. Keep slathering it on. I find coconut oil disperses quite quickly. I presume because it gets so, with body temperature, it sort of dribbles away and is absorbed sometimes. But yeah, try anything. You can use olive oil as well. You really want the olive oil, ideally from the pharmacy. It's a bit more purely filtered. That any edible oil that no one has allergies to, you can use to keep it moist. There are silver cups, which personally I've used and really love. So silver has, and
I like
yeah, yeah, I really loved them. But for some people who are so sorry, it's a silver cup. It's like just like a little cup that goes
that.
over the nipple, literally. And silver has healing properties to it, and it really is amazing. Lots of dressings are impregnated with silver these days. So there's lots of different brands. I don't think any are better than the other. Just making sure it's just silver is obviously important. But the problem can be that if you're a heavy leaker, your nipple just stays totally wet and soggy. Wet, soggy. So we don't want wet, soggy skin with this. We want moist skin. So sometimes if you're a heavy leaker, you end up with a what we call macerated skin, where the skin just breaks down because it's totally wet all the time. Also, some people, if you've got lots of engorgement or very like full breast, find that the cup leaves like an indent on the breast and can be quite painful, could lead to not emptying the breast as well, could cause some inflammation. So it's with those, the only thing is they can be quite expensive to do as a trial and error thing. But personally, I really liked them. They really worked for me. But there is some things to be cautious about. So if your nipples aren't healing and you're using them, then let's go back to basics and look at a different option.
And like not one size fits all. I like
Yeah.
that silver caps because you can send them back. The ones I got, send them back and make a necklace out of them. Like they crush it and kind of make it flat. You can make your
Never heard of that. I love
and
it.
yeah, then I think they do like a little. They can write the name on it and stuff, and it's for free if you buy them. I'll try and find the link for the ones that I
I
bought. I actually
love
never had
it.
it done because I was in Costa Rica, but now I'm back. I can send them back.
And it's a UK company.
Yeah, it was a UK company. Yeah, I'll
Wow.
find it
Uh,
and I'll send it to you. I
Yeah,
was so because that's not why I bought them, but when I saw that as a gift, I was like, oh, that's so beautiful.
that's really sweet.
So, do you think I can get one more question in?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's sweet.
So, do breastfeeding babies need winded?
That this is not a quick question.
Oh, sure.
This is like my
This is
my life force here. Okay, so do breastfed babies need winding? No. But so it's yes and no, isn't it? There's no one size fits all. But if you have a breastfed baby who latches well to the breast, can cope with your flow of milk, they've got good oral function, and then you are holding your baby next to you, sort of semi upright, or they're in a sling a lot of the time, as babies are biologically built to be. So we're a carrying species. If you think of a cave woman, she wouldn't have just laid her kid down on the floor. She didn't have anywhere to put the child. She would have made perhaps a makeshift sling, or the baby would have been held often by her or other female family members who were around her. That's how our babies were built. And I know that, that's not realistic for many of us. Sadly, we'd love to do that. But you have to put your child down. Sometimes you've got other stuff to do, other kids to sort out. But what you'll find is that most breastfed babies, actually, if they're upright, will just pass any air that they need to. So let's remember why babies may vomit more often, have reflux, so the milk comes out their tummy, maybe a little posset or a bit of sick or whatever. That's because the muscle at the top of their tummy opens and closes at random. So is that not the mechanism to allow any air just to come up? That's a design feature. That's not a fault. So the majority of babies, you spend hours trying to burp this breastfed baby who perhaps has a really good latch at the breast. So they're not really swallowing air. Unless they're screaming and crying, which is when they can also swallow air, there isn't really a need to because you hold them up. And if there's anything to come out, it will just travel out. That's how their tummy's designed. But what happens when you try and burp a baby is you wake them because they've fallen asleep at the breast like they're meant to, sleep hormones in the milk. Beautiful thing, they're asleep, but you've got this societal pressure to burp your baby. So then you wake them up by slamming them on the back, moving them around, doing all this, that, and the other. They wake up, they're understandably pissed off, I would be, and you put them back to the breast to soothe them. So you then put in the back to the breast when they were full, they were done, thanks very much. You woke me up. They're then feeding again. So then I know we say we can't overfeed a breastfed baby, but we actually can. If they're signaling, I'm done, they've stopped feeding, they've fallen asleep at the breast, but we're making them feed. It's like, oh, then they will be uncomfortable and grumpy. Their tummy's really full. Their digestion is kind of overloaded here. And of course, they can then spew it all up because they're over full. If you've got a breastfed baby who's fallen asleep at the breast, let it be. If you put them down, you're taking a gamble, you're going to try and put them down, and they squirm and wake up, then of course pick them back up. When you pick them up upright, the likelihood is if it is air in their tummy, they'll just birth it out. You can do wonky winding, which is where their bum is in the middle of your chest and their head is on your right shoulder. And that works with the shape of the stomach. So if you do have a baby, perhaps your latch is a bit iffy or you've got a really strong letdown, so they gulp and clip and gasp when they're going to the breast, they may be swallowing air. So using wonky winding, that was coined by Lindsay Hookway, a fantastic lactation consultant in the UK. That's going to really help bring up any air. And hopefully over time, your supply will settle and your baby will get better at swallowing the milk, or any like tongue tie that's causing that would be treated. With a bottle fed baby, then yes, you do need to burp them because within the bottle there is air, so they are going to swallow air. And that's okay. That's just when you use your gentle technique like wonky winding, holding them upright, having them in a sling, and they will just pass the air themselves. You don't need vigorous patting, working. If you have to do all that, then there's not air in their tummy. And my final thing, burps don't become farts or toots or whatever. So your baby, if you don't burp them, that's not what is causing the digestive stuff. They're farting. They're two different, with a baby, they're two different things. So swallowing air, an IgE allergy to something in formula or breast milk is what will cause like lots of reflux. Whereas farting and digestive stuff can be loads of different, can be allergies. It could be lactose overload. It could be loads of different things, but it's not air going down into the bowel from the tummy.
Thanks for clearing that one up.
Always talk about
Oh,
farts and poo.
love it. I absolutely love farts and poo. That's like my world.
And that is for new parents. Just make space in your phone camera reel for lots of pictures of poo and nappies, celebrating poos.
Honestly, it's so true, right? Olivia, honestly, for your time,
You're
you
welcome. Well, I hope it's helpful because I really do think friends, family, partners, they're just the most important people to your whole experience of pregnancy, birth, postnatal. Even when things don't go to plan, which we know sometimes we can't influence, we can do the best planning in the world. And sometimes, there's curveballs for whatever reason. Working as a team with compassion and understanding really helps. Everybody copes. A lot of time we dismiss partners as well, particularly, don't we? When they've witnessed a traumatic birth experience, it can be really hard seeing your loved one going through a hard time. So trying to bring us all together as a team can make such a difference.
totally. One of my biggest driving forces for doing this season as well is I remember when I was in labor and I was in and out of consciousness. And Elon, my partner, looked at me and was like, "Do you want a coffee?"
Uh,
That was so true. And of course, he's not a midwife, he's not a doula, but there he was stepping into that role. And he had a lot of trauma from what he witnessed and how he saw me treated. And this is another dedication to him and people who are supporting these moments because they can get missed and forgotten about, but they still live within our body. So there is a way to reclaim this by getting the information and being able to step forward. So thank you to you. And I would love for you to just share with the listeners where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram. It's a very simple handle, Olivia Lactation Consultant. I don't do private work though. I don't, but it's basically just an information sharing platform, really, where I share evidence based advice and also some of the good and the bad parts of motherhood. Yeah, to make that it's not all roses, and that's okay. Perfection doesn't exist, in my opinion.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to put the link to our last episode and we'll just get this episode filled with resources as well. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So good to talk to you again.
You too.